Good evening. Come on in. Good evening. Good evening. It's Wednesday, November the 18th. My goodness. November the 18th. Jump down there in the chat box and let me know that you're on. We're just gonna have a little conversation on the night. What we do over here, we have the parking lot conversation. So you all come on in. Let me know that you're down there. Wave at me. Uh, Tell me that you're on and that you're tuned in for the parking lot conversation right over here. Right over here. My goodness, it's been a couple of weeks since the last time that I was up here. There's been a lot going on. Sometimes you just got to clear your mind and do a little reflection. And I thought, okay, well, tonight will be a good opportunity for me to hop on and just talk a little bit, and more so, beyond that, it will give me the opportunity to see where some of you are. I want to see where some of you are with life. I want to see where you are with life. I want to see, uh, what's going on. Can you believe that we're getting ready to move from one year into the next? This year has absolutely flown by. And with that being said, this is the time now to begin to reset. All right. I want you to begin to reset and to consider, where is it that you desiring to go in your next year? We don't want a resolution. We don't want that, but how do we begin to navigate now in order to help you move towards your higher mark, your higher calling, as scripture says, that thing that's always pulling you, something that's always pulling you toward it. And so this is the perfect time for us to begin to do that reset and to have some of those conversations. So I want you to come on in, and I'm just doing one or two things. Don't forget, before you're on, I see one or two folk have joined us. Click the like button, send up some hearts, and let me know that you're on. And then the most important thing you could do is click the share button. I want you to click the share button. We've got two or three folk joining in. Click that share button and let some folk know that we are on and they can tune in, because I want us to begin to reflect on how we're going to reset for the upcoming year. How we're going to reset for the upcoming year. And then I really just want to hear about, what have you been experiencing? We've been in this COVID posture for several months now, and everybody is pretty much COVID out, okay? A lot of folk are tired. A lot of folk are just kind of weary in spirit. There is taking all of their energy in their mind, and that's understandable. We're not out of the woods yet. There's a lot going on as it relates to, they've talked about vaccines, etc. But before we get that, what are you doing to continue to maintain your own mental health, your own spiritual health, and your own physical health? And so I just want us to have a little conversation. So I'm glad that you're on, and this is the perfect time for us to do that. I came on a little early. I've been trying this out because I know occasionally we get some listeners from the East Coast, and I'm way out here on the West Coast. And so I want to give them an opportunity, just as before they get ready to tuck into bed, to come on in and to take part in the conversation as well. So, where are you in your journey right now, and then where would you like to go? Where would you like to go as we begin to prepare to move into a new year? It's almost that time. And I believe there's absolutely nothing wrong with beginning your preparations and beginning to set up the necessary pieces so that you can begin to move towards your higher calling, to move toward that goal, that destination that you desire to go to. So I'm glad to be with you. It's been a couple of weeks. It's Wednesday night, And at this point, I just believe everybody should be, finishing up with Zoom church, Zoom Bible study, all of those kind of things. And you should have been able to get your snacks and whatnot. You ought to be coming out of all of your Zoom uh, uh, Wednesday evening Bible study lessons and groups and whatnot. So come on in here. Let's talk. Let's have the conversation. And let me know where are you? So the person that's tuning in right now, where are you in life? It's almost time for us to move into 2021. So don't click away. Where are you? Where are you right now in 2020? And how are you preparing to move into 2021? This is the perfect time to begin to reset, reorganize, and then you can begin to mobilize your plan. You could put feet to it and then begin to move forward on it. But I'm excited. I've been out even in the midst of COVID, and like I said, so many people are COVID tired in your mind, in your spirit, in your heart. You're just tired. And I would submit to you that in that tiredness, don't forget to continue to care for yourself, and in your caring for yourself, you care for others. But at the same time, don't forget that this is, although things are slow, this is the perfect time for you to be trying to hear from God and say, where is it that you desire for me to go as we move into the new year? And there's a lot of folk out there. Some folk might be feeling some kind of way and, saying, man, 2020 has done a real number on a whole lot of folk. But this was a good year for me. I don't mind hearing that, because this might have been a good year for you. And then if this was not the best year for you, even in the midst of that, we're going to reset. We're going to prepare to say we're going to move from 2020 into 2021, because there's a lot in what you speak, and there's a lot in having some kind of plan. And a lot of folk just want to jump into it and think that God is going to, just throw open the windows or whatever, and all will be well. But that's not necessarily how it works. You have to, I think it was one of the candidates early in the primary season. Anyway, I love the tune. She basically said, we're gonna put our feet to the street. And that's the reality of it. You can pray all day, but it's what you do after you get up off of your knees that makes the difference. All right. So I see one of our regular attendees is on. I see him coming in the chat. Marquis is on, and you're going day by day. I think a lot of folk are just living day by day. A lot of folk are living day by day right now. And that's understandable, like I said, because there's been a whole lot in 2020. There's been a lot of anxiety. There's been great stressors, and these have been real anxiety, real triggers and real stressors. None of them I would brush to the side. And let me just submit for those who are tuned in that you would be surprised what happens when you are in a situation where the person at the top is in an unhealthy spiritual place. Okay. It all flows down. It all flows down. And when you've got somebody that's in an unhealthy spot and they are at the top, whether it be of an organization, whether it be of a congregation, it could simply be a small sorority group. When there is friction and internal struggle within the person that's leading, it always spills down. It always spills down and through all of the struggles of the person that's at the head of the organization. And so I would submit to you that a lot of the stressors, a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the concerns, a lot of the struggles, that stuff has a way of filtering itself out and it really has done that in 2020, and it will literally take a toll on your whole body. Why? Because everything that happens in the spiritual realm, everything that happens, within our minds, which is where some of our greatest struggles and battles play out, always has a way of showing up in the physical. All right. It shows up in our body. It shows up in our eating. It shows up in not being able to sleep. A couple of weeks ago, in the midst of everything that was transpiring, and I'm not going to deal with politics, but in the midst of everything that's transpiring, I never get up in the middle of the night. Normally, I have a pretty decent night's rest. I hit the pillow after I do all of my stuff for the day. I'm in. That's it. I'm done. But for whatever reason, that particular night, and I won't even say for whatever reason, I know what reason it was. I was up at least three times, at least three times. And I remember laying back down in bed and remembering saying to myself, Lord, this has that much sway over my spirit. It has that kind of tug and hold on my spirit. And so I just began to pray until the Lord was able to let me ease off to sleep. But just be mindful, stuff flows from top down, And so you have to be careful in any organization, in any group that you're participating in. I don't know who's out there that might be hearing it, but let me know if you've had your own experiences with that. You got to be careful who you put at the top, because all of their issues and their struggles spills down into every other aspect of the organization, which includes the people. All right. Hey, John Reese, I really like that. And yeah, Marquis, this has been an exhausting year. I think that's a good word for it. An exhausting year. And a lot of people are exhausted. That being said, this is the holiday season. And outside of the commercial aspect of the holiday season, I would be curious how some of you all are desiring to celebrate. So actually, those are two great points for us. So let's talk a little bit about one. John Reese has already put it up in the comment section about planning for the next chapter, planning for the next year, moving out of 2020 into 2021. But then let's talk a little bit about how are you going to celebrate outside of like I said, outside of the commercial aspect of the holidays. What are you going to do to celebrate this year? Even though it's been so exhausting, we are all still here. So how are you going to begin to put into motion the things that you and your family, the traditions that you have that puts you in the right atmosphere of just simply being grateful, which I believe is what the holidays is all about. So to the first point, I'm going to put John Reese up here. John Reese said, planning for my next chapter of post retirement to work in my ministry. I absolutely love that. Planning for my next chapter of post retirement to work in my ministry. And JR, I'm assuming that'll be full-time ministry, because you've already been doing ministry. You're doing ministry every day. And I would imagine you want to do that full time, but you want to be able to do that without having to punch a clock of some sort. So, if you don't mind sharing, what does that ministry look like? And as you are planning, and I think this is for all of us, retirement, you can begin to start considering retirement now. I don't care what age you are. We've got several folk on here, so I hope everybody is listening. You could begin to start planning for retirement now. And in that regard, I would submit to you that it's not necessarily retirement, but how do you say I'm closing a chapter in order to open up another one? So there might be some new venture that you desire to go out to. Jr. is saying she's going. John Reese is going to move into retirement. But what happens for those who say in 2020, I really want to get out of this job that I'm in right now. This job is not truly fulfilling me. This job is not allowing me to really do what I feel like I've been called to do here on earth. For some folk, maybe it's putting a smile on your face, on other people's faces. The job you have, you never come in contact with individuals where you can put a smile on their face. Or maybe you've been desiring to move into entrepreneurship and you're saying, I've been punching the clock at this gig for the longest now. And you've had all of these reasons why you have not started your business. You've had reason after reason after reason after reason. And, but now is the time. Why are you waiting? Why are you moving? Why aren't you moving by now? Now is the moment to say, here's what we're going to do. By this date, I'm going to have this. And sometimes it's small steps, people. It's small steps. So that being said, it could be entrepreneurial. All right. So how you want to begin to move from one phase into the next. Not only are we talking about financially or career wise, but how are you going to plan to move in your relationships? How are you going to plan to move from where you are now in respect to family relationships, in respect to work relationships, in respect to the relationship that you have with yourself? How are you going to begin to move from one level to the next for next year? Because we all ought to be obtaining that higher. We all ought to be desiring to move up and over where we are. So planning for the next year certainly encompasses financial. It certainly encompasses career, but it also can encompass, like I said, your relationships. It can encompass your health. It can encompass saying that there have been some broken places in my life that I desire for some healing to take place, and so that might mean I need to reach out to a therapist, reach out to a counselor, reach out to a chaplain, somebody that know what they're doing. So, how are you going to transition? Right, Jr. Ren, I see you on. So glad to have you. Right. So no clock punching, and the reality of it is, um, you know, I think now is the time, especially for families to get together and say, y'all, what can we do? How can we put our money together uh, to do some generational wealth building? And so I hope that some of you all will consider that, because the reality of it is we really should not have to punch a clock. We really shouldn't have to punch a clock. We shouldn't have to depend on folks saying that you got to show up in conditions that are not conducive, because, whether it be proper PPE, we're in a whole pandemic right now. And so that being said, how do you begin to get together and say, you know what, I don't want to punch a clock. Matter of fact, there's some folk on here, whether it be young or old, you might be saying, I don't want to punch a clock in 2021. Well, what does that mean? That means that you then have to become your own manager. You have to become your own director and saying, what am I going to do? And I think that comes with tapping into saying, what is it that I can do? What is it that I'm already doing every day that I'm not getting paid for? What is that thing that I know I give to every single person that I'm not getting paid for? And I hope that you'll begin to tap into it, and some folk think it has to be something big, and it doesn't. It absolutely does not have to be something that is just overwhelmingly large. You don't have to go out and get a building or what. We're not talking about that. But what is it that you do? I'm talking to each one of you. What is it that you do every single day? And you say, this is what I should be doing, but nobody's paying me for it. Well, then the question becomes, how do we begin to help get you on the path where that does become wealth building for you? Wealth building for you. Because the Lord said, I have a cattle on 1,000 hills. The Lord never intended for anybody to be dirt poor. And so I have to remind myself daily, I'm not where I want to be. I'm telling you that now. I know that. And I'm not going to sit on here and act like I'm some kind of, fantastic entrepreneur. But I do have goals. I have my vision of where I desire to go. And punching the clock is certainly not something that I see in my future. And I hope that for all of us on here, we will be considering and saying, where is it that I desire to go? So thanks for sharing, JR. And I hope that all of us on here right now, like I say, feel free to comment down there in the chat, and we can always come back to it. But I want to hear, what are some of your plans for moving into the next year? What are some of your plans for moving into the next year? My goodness, Matt Turner, I'm so glad to see you tuned in. Glad to have you as a and let me get you up here. As a salary employee, how do you go about that when there is not a clock to punch? I think that's a good question because I'm I guess a quote unquote salaried employee, and there's really not a clock to punch. But that being said, it comes intentional. You have to be intentional about saying, from this time to this time, here is where I'm doing the work for this crowd over here. And then you have to, like I say, be your own manager. How are you your own manager? How are you being your own supervisor, and say, from this time to this time, when I get home, there's nothing that can transpire for this hour. There's nothing that can transpire for this, 30-minute block, whatever it is, that you need to do in order to begin to shift the direction that you desire to go. That's on you, because the folk or the company that you work for, that is quote, where you are salaried. All right, where you are salaried. The reality of it is, they're getting something out of you. Well, as much as they're getting something out of you, what are you giving back to yourself? And so what you're giving back to yourself should be intentionality to say, during, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I'm spending time with my wife. I know you're married. Or from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we're going to watch the news. But then from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, or from 7 o'clock until 8:45, or whatever that looks like, in that window, here's what I'm going to be doing that can move my family and myself forward out of this salaried position. Because that company is not going to be intentional for you. What they are going to be intentional about is getting everything out of you that they desire to get out of you. But you're the only person that could be intentional about getting the things out, are putting those things back into your own life, into your own self that you desire to do. They're not going to do that for you. You have to be intentional about that. And that comes with habit, that comes with practice, and that comes with carving out that plan. Carving out that plan. So every morning you hop up, and before you go to bed or whatever time of the day you desire to do that, you make that plan. But the biggest word there is intentionality. And if you're in the chat and you hear that word right now, I hope that you'll let that sit on you, and you could even put it down in the chat. Intentionality. You have to be intentional about everything that you desire to do. So if you desire to move away from that company and move into your own venture, into your own business, into your own, where you control your own clock, you control being your own boss, then you got to be intentional about that. And then once you get to a place, and set your markers, and say, you know what, by 2 or 3 months down the road, here is where I desire to be in having set things up. And then, you go on from there. But you're going to have to be intentional in sitting down. I remember, and John Reese is on here, we were in school together, and it wasn't until she took the pen, the pencil, licked the tip, and put it to paper and started saying, you know what? We can be out of this program and graduate at this point right here. And that's what we did. And that is what we did. But it wasn't until she took the time. I should have done it. But when she took the time to sit down and put that pencil to paper and added up the numbers, saw the way things looked, and saw it in paper, and for a lot of us, this is the part of the scriptures that we miss. A whole lot of folk love to quote the scripture, and we do it all the time. What is the scripture? Write the vision, make it plain. Well, that's reality. How in the world are you going to go somewhere where you have nothing to go off of? Put it down on paper. Put it down on paper. Type it in your notes on your phone. It doesn't have to necessarily be on paper. If you got an iPad, when you sitting there and it comes to you, type it up, put it there, and say, bam, there it is. And so I would submit to you that it comes. Deidre said this the best right there. Intentionality is discipline. And it comes in that it comes with being disciplined. All right. So, Matt, to your question, I think it's an absolutely fantastic question, and I'm glad that you raised it. And I'm going to put it back up here for folks so that they can see the question that you asked. How do you begin to move that when you're not punching the clock? I submit to you, it's in intentionality. You got to be intentional, and the only way that you could be intentional is being disciplined. You have to remain disciplined. God knows I'm not where I desire to be in my physical body yet, but if anybody knows where I was physically, I've come a long way, and I fight that every day. And so every morning, even though I don't want to go to the gym, I've never had a desire to do that. I get up every morning like clockwork and make my way to do my physical fitness first, to start my day, to get my mind right, and to continue to inch toward my goal. I'm not where I am, but I'm definitely not where I started. And but I've had to be disciplined in my moving toward my goal. All right. And so and that has come with me saying, this is what I want to be intentional about. All right. So thanks for that question, Matt. And don't let this be your last time tuning in. I hope that you'll share this out on your page with some folk and let them know that they could tune in here because we want to hear from everybody. I want to make sure that as chaplain, I'm giving everybody the opportunity to ask the questions that you desire to ask, and that's exactly what we want. Yeah, man, I certainly miss Fort Worth, but let me say this, because I came back. A lot of stuff is in our words. And this is just real quick for folk. I have been doing a whole lot of traveling toward the end of my time at Morehouse. They were sending me everywhere. I mean, just traveling. And I came home one time right after graduation, after coming back from Africa. And I told my mother, I don't want to be on another plane. I don't want to go nowhere. And whether you believe this or not, it was almost 4 years later that I actually got on a plane and went somewhere else. And I want to submit to you, don't forget that life and death lie in the power of the tongue. Okay, folks? And the Lord heard that. And then I got to the place where I said, you know what? This isn't what I had in mind, Lord. I really never intended for you to put a halt on all of my traveling, because I love traveling. I love going to see other places. I love being around new things that I had not seen before. It had become a part of me. So as much as I love Fort Worth, the one thing I know is that Fort Worth is always there. And at the same time, I always know that I can continue to move around as the Lord gives me grace, and until otherwise. And then when the Lord says you got to shift back this direction, I'll shift back that direction. But right now, I'm enjoying the role. I'm enjoying the ride. Excuse me, that the Lord has me on. But I am always, without question. Folks say, "Where are you from?" And I don't mind telling them. Not only am I from Fort Worth, but I am from Lake Como, Texas, right out there in that community. And that community raised me into the person that I am. And I'm very proud of Como, and I'm very proud of Fort Worth, and I am certainly proud of those who continue to do the great work in Fort Worth. Which every time I do come back, you all got more traffic than what I ever remember seeing, which tells us that the city is certainly growing and expanding. So to that, yeah, John Reese, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional and put yourself in places to hone your craft. So let's talk just a little bit about that, because we got a mixed variety of folk on here, and let's talk about that word that you have right there, in your craft. What is your craft? What is your craft? And then the other part that you talk about, Jr. John Reese, is how are you honing your craft? How are you learning from others? I think that's the I have had our I have had mentors. Some mentored me in what not to do. Okay. And then I have had mentors who took everything to a whole nother level and raised my level. As a matter of fact, I can hear one of my mentors saying that right now, I'm going to raise your level. I'm going to raise your level, even though he's talking about food at the moment. But how are you? What is your craft? What is it that you do every day? What is your craft? Because there's a whole lot of folk out there who are gifted, but what makes the difference, what causes individuals to stand out? Hey, Connie, I didn't see that you were on. And please tell your mother I said hey, and I love y'all back. But what are you doing? We could take Constance, for instance. She's on, since you're on right now. Constance does hair. So she has to continue to work on her craft daily, because she can't do the same style that she every single time on every individual that comes into her shop. All right. There are new styles. There's new approaches. There's new ways to care for hair. There's new products to help care for hair. And the list goes on and on and on. So in that regard, I would submit, I think a beautician is a perfect example. They have to continue to hone their craft. And even in me being a chaplain, I want to submit to you that you have to hone the craft of doing what I do daily. And these books that are behind me, and there's a whole lot of books off here to the sides that you can't see, and books in my closet that you can't see, and books in another room. But I think one of the word I want to use is I read voraciously. I re, I read. I read, and I read things that other folk who probably raised me never read, but I read it because it has expanded me and it has allowed me to do what it is that I do. And so how are you honing your craft? How are you, as John Reese said, and I'm going to put it back up there, I see you, D, and I'm coming to you. How are you putting yourself in a place where you can learn from others? You are never too old and you are never too young to learn from somebody. I learn from both young and old, and I've had some amazing, and as much as individuals, talk about older people, the wisdom that comes with older people, you cannot pay for. You cannot pay for. And so what I want to submit to you is never get yourself in a place where you cannot learn and you cannot continue to tweak the craft that you have. The craft that you have. Sit in a lot of what I do comes because I simply sat quiet and I watched. I just watched. And like I said, I watched some of the bad, but I have seen not some good, but I have seen some excellent. I have absolutely seen some excellent. And I sat there with my mouth closed like a fly on the wall. I didn't say anything. And I just watched the interaction. And I said, yes. Now, I can't do it exactly the way he did it. But I got some skill. I've got some tools for my pocket now that allow me to maneuver, to move around and to do what it is that I do, which is to pastor, which is to care for all of God's children. D, you had a scripture up there. I want to put it up there. A man's gifts make room for him and bringeth him before a great man. And that is so true. And every single individual on this live right now, you have a gift. And the truth is your gift should be filling your pocketbook. Do y'all hear me? I hope you receive that on tonight. Your gift should be moving you financially. It should be moving you spiritually. It should be moving you in every direction that you desire to go. What is your gift? Because the reality of it is what you do to clock in and clock out, or like Matt said, if you're salaried and you're not clocking like I am, they always got me. But the reality of it is your gift is what should be moving you forward, because that's why you are here. Now, the moment that you are not fulfilling your gift, or the moment that that it seems like you are just gonna go off on your own tangent, then the reality of it is that's when stuff starts falling apart. Because you are here to fulfill a gift that I cannot. Connie don't want me doing anybody's hair. My goodness, can you all imagine me doing some? I don't want to even think about how they're going to come out. I don't even try to line my own hair up, okay? I go to somebody else who's an artist in that way. They have a gift for that. They have an ability to have even just the ability to sit down in the chair. You know, there's an art for the beautician or for the barber to be able to have a little conversation with all of their clients. All right. I'm not a big talker in the chair, but there are some folk who get in the chair and they talk about everything. They just let rip on what's going on in their life. Okay. So that being said, what is your gift? What is your gift? And tap into your gift. And if you're struggling with trying to figure out what your gift is now in the midst of COVID, when we can't really, be doing all of the things that we desire to do, now is the perfect time to say, I want to move into a place where I can hear. I can hear. And I just got through talking to somebody about that. And some of that means you got to let some folk go that can't go with you. That, whether it be family, whether it be your wife or your husband or your partner, uh, whatever that is. Some folk got to shed your job. Okay, so I got to save up enough money because at a certain place I got to transition. All of that comes in the plan. But you ought to be moving in your gifting. And some folk got more than one gift, and that's a beautiful thing as well. But you should be moving in your gifting, and as you're moving, it should be adding to your life. It should be, you shouldn't have to be worrying about your bank account, all of those pieces, because your gifting uh, will put you in a place where you don't have to worry about those things. And that's really what the Lord has you here for. That's really what the Lord had. Now, it might not make you a billionaire, but the Lord want to take care of you, okay? So I'm not telling you to go out, go out, you're going to go out there and make $1,000,000. Now, you could. And if you do, don't forget me now. Don't forget me now. But the reality of it is, just be mindful that your gift, that thing that you do, that only you can do, that Jenkins cannot do, that I don't even want to try to do, we're waiting on you. And you are absolutely the only person who can do it. All right? You are absolutely the only person who can do it. And Connie, I see you down there. I have to continue to educate myself with hair shows, with books, with social media, and other cosmetologists, because hair and fashion are constantly changing. And Connie, that's important. And I don't know if you have your channel yet, but I'm waiting to see you put your channel up there. We want to see these are the opportunities for us to begin to rethink how we do things. And so, and I know you're licensed. I know you're licensed. Now, if you weren't licensed, I wouldn't promote you. But since you're licensed and you got the goods, I don't mind saying, if there's a particular style, if there's a particular approach that you have really honed in on, there are some young, up and coming stylists out there that I'm sure you click with and can coach with. And this might be the perfect time for you to take on some apprentices. I don't know what that looks like. But just, all of us have to be open. All of us have to consider the various ways that we move and that we operate in our gifting. And so that being said, this is November. This is November. Um, oh my goodness. Yeah, Matt. Matt, you know what? And the reality of it is, you don't have to hear me. And the simple fact that you tuned in and that you were open, you probably already been hearing. Okay, you probably already been hearing, and there's probably already been something that's moving within your own heart or within your own mind. And the truth is, uh, you just were able to tune into this little conversation and you got another nudge. And so I hope that you will do it. I hope that you will follow the direction that the nudge is submitting for you to go in. All right. And that being said, before you all I want to hear your thoughts. What are you doing? Like I said, we're talking about planning, we're talking about moving forward. And at the same time, how are you going to celebrate? How are you going to celebrate in this season of Thanksgiving? Because the truth is, the commercial folk just skipped, they blew right past Thanksgiving. I don't think it's as big of a moneymaker as Halloween or as Christmas. I don't think they're bringing the same kind of funds with Thanksgiving. But how are you going to celebrate? How are you going to? What is that? What is that tradition? For me, I love certain movies. Now, there's certain movies that I have to watch during the Christmas season. Okay, that I cannot go without. One of those is The Preacher's Wife. That is an annual. I can't start the holiday without watching The Preacher's Wife with Whitney Houston. Okay. So that being said, what are some of the things that you all are going to do to kickstart your holiday season in this very unique period that we're in? And for those of you that might be going to church functions or something like that, I hope that you're masking up and that you've got your sanitizer and whatnot, and that you're practicing your physical distancing. You know, they keep using this word social, 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 social. Is not. Just stay over there. Just stay. It's physical. I want to be social with you. But what I don't want you to do is to come into my bubble in the midst of this pandemic, okay? So, that being said, what are some of the things that you plan on doing during this holiday season? Drop it down there in the chats. Let's see what's on your mind. There's been some absolutely fantastic movies that's come out. One was Jingle Jangle. I just watched that the other day, and it was absolute, from the costuming to the actual music, to the production. It was fantastic, and I hope that if you have not seen it, that you will take time to check that wonderful film out. It was an instant Christmas classic on my list, and I think it's well worth your time to just sit down there and enjoy that wonderful movie. Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. It's a Wonderful Life. Now listen, that's another one that is on my list. It's a Wonderful Life. And my goodness, I'm forgetting his name. It was it George? Isn't it George in It's a Wonderful Life? The angel, oh my goodness, it's George. I think it's George. Let me know, D, if I'm wrong, but I think it was George. But that movie is certainly one of my to goes, and also Miracle on 34th Street. All right, that's another one of my Christmas specials that I cannot go without. And my family will George Bailey. I knew you would have it for me. I just couldn't think of the last name. George Bailey. That's right. That's right. So It's a Wonderful Life is certainly one of my regulars. And I posted earlier, the Charlie Brown Christmas special, and will be airing. It's that time of the year as well. Connie, Jingle Jangle. You've got to go and watch it. You all have to watch it, and you got a ladies' night going. So you all make sure that you got your wine. If y'all are gonna have some, a hot drink, add you a little something to it, and just kick back and relax and enjoy it, and have some food out there. But it is definitely a fantastic movie. It really really was, and it was well done. I don't think that it was cheap or anything like that. I thought it was well done. All right, John Reese is cooking, and my family, and they come by and take their meal home. All right, so and I know that John Reese can cook because I have partaken in that many a day myself. So I I would cooking. There is something about this season, and actually I was listening to someone earlier who was just, suggesting they weren't going to do any cooking this year because they've been doing it for years. They have been the host for years and for years. And that person was just like, you know what? I'm taking a break this year, and I ain't doing it. I'm going to go to their house. I'm going to go to their spot, and I'm going to wear my mask, and I'm going to make sure I show up with my, COVID test that tells folk that I'm clean and I'm good to go, but I ain't cooking. And so, uh, for some folk, you might decide, you know what, this year we're gonna change it up. I would be curious, what's on the meal? What's on what's on the menu? Um, and for me, for Thanksgiving, somebody asked me that the other day. Well, what are you gonna have? And I just said, I want everything but the turkey. I don't mind the turkey, but sometimes folk make it really dry, and they don't cook it well and all of that, and it is not what it don't do nothing for me. But my goodness, I want macaroni and cheese and yams and greens and all of those other I want the fixings, dressing. I want all of those things. So I think this is a great time. And if you haven't started shopping, I know I don't really have to worry about shopping this year, but I would imagine y'all, if y'all haven't started shopping by now, y'all ought to get on by the grocery store. All right. Yeah. Uh it was George Bailey. Thanks so much for that, D. It is George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life. It's and that is absolutely one of my Christmas favorites. Constance, you're right. The Grinch. You know what they did? He's a classic. In everything he does, Jim Carrey is absolutely a gift. In everything that he does, and he played that part so well in The Grinch and Diva's Christmas Carol, Vanessa Williams. I'm not familiar with that one. Diva's Christmas Carol. I have not come across that one before, so maybe I need to check that one out. All right, Diva's Christmas Carol. Thank you for sharing that one. Vanessa Williams, huh? Okay. Is that new or is that one old? Y'all got to get me caught up to that one on that one. Fred Claus, thank you. And you know what? I haven't been doing, and as we talk about how do you move from, one year into the next, I literally 1 year went from eating pork and into the next year, and I haven't had it since. Okay. So, but that honey baked ham, I know that is a showstopper for a whole lot of folk. And I never really liked the ham um, on the holiday. I always liked it the day after because I enjoyed a ham sandwich. And I grew up with, my grandmother giving me a piece of bread and a piece of chicken, and she would just hand it to me, or a piece of bread and a piece of bologna, and, go on about your business. So, a sandwich for me, if I can make me a sandwich, not a sandwich, the real fancy, the cold cuts and all of that kind of stuff, but a sandwich, I'm good to go. I am good to go. And if I were going to have pork, Constance, you hit that right. That honey baked ham. Why? Because I could go and get one of those Hawaiian sweet rolls. Y'all help me. A Hawaiian sweet roll, and then I just lay that ham across that Hawaiian sweet roll and make sure it's nice and tight. And that's all I need. That's all I need. I would be just fine. I would be absolutely fine if I could just have that Hawaiian sweet roll with a nice piece of ham laid in between there, and it would be perfect. It would be absolutely perfect. So I agree with you. The dressing and the cranberry sauce, smoked turkey. You're right. You gotta smoke it. Some folk try to do, they try to fry it and all that kind. Sometimes they do it well with it fried and it doesn't, come out too dry. But I don't want any dry turkey. I don't want it. And smoking does it, and the folk who know how to do it just right, where it comes out moist, and it has taste and it has flavor. So I'm glad folk are putting together now the sweet potato pie. You're right, and folk might think I'm crazy. I know I'm about to just finish up here, but sweet potato pie. Let me just say this. I am fickle. I eat the filling first, and then I eat the crust. Now I did that because I grew up with my grandmother and the older folk from my community who would make those sweet potato pies. One in particular, her name was Mrs. Monning. And a matter of fact, I think Mrs. Monning passed away. I think she was 99 or something like that when she passed. But every year, like clockwork, I could count on Miss Monning telling me to come by the house and get my sweet potato pie. Partially why I was so big. But my goodness, they made their own crust. They made their own crust. And I absolutely loved the pie, but beyond, I love the crust. And so I would eat everything first and then get to the crust last. And it was just something about the homemade crust. And you're right, nobody wants any dry bird. I don't want no dry bird. I don't want a dry bird. I don't want none for Thanksgiving, and I sure don't want none for Christmas. And this might be an interesting year with everything changing up, with there being so much change and so much shifting. I would submit, maybe this would be the year you say, what can we add? Or what's something that we've never done, some unique, you know, maybe you want enchiladas. I don't know. But maybe you try something different. Maybe you try something different and add to your Thanksgiving or your Christmas dinner. But I just want everybody to celebrate, and I want us to keep talking about it. So I'm gonna come back on here and find out how you all's preparations are continuing to go as we move toward Thanksgiving, and then as we move toward Christmas. But I hope that in between now and the last day of December, that you will begin to enjoy, that you would spend time with family as you can, keeping in mind that we are still in the midst of a pandemic and the numbers are absolutely rising. Don't let anybody tell you that is not, because that's the reality of it. And you want to be healthy, and then you also want to take care of them because you love them. Now, if you don't love them, you know, then that's y'all's decision. But if you love them, you do what you do in order to support and care for them. And then, so celebrate. And while you're celebrating, while you're enjoying time during this holiday season, begin to take time to refocus. And we've had some great words on tonight: intentionality, discipline, gift. What is your gift? And how are you honing your craft? Um, this is the time I would submit that I think we should do that. Begin to reshift and hone your craft and start trying some things that you haven't. Break out into some ventures that you've been holding back on, or maybe you're desiring. I was just talking to somebody the other day about languages. Maybe you want to learn a new language. All of this stuff is right at our fingertips, and it just comes with us saying we're going to do it. So I hope that you will begin to start charting out. Remember, you got the piece that made the difference for myself was, like I said, when John Reese said, I took the tip, licked it, and put it to paper, and here's what the numbers say. When you see it, it's when you see it. And the scripture already told us that. You gotta have it where you can see it, and then you can run. Then you can obtain it. And so I hope, I hope that you will begin to place down in your cell phone, place it somewhere where you are forced to see it every single day, in order that you could begin to move into your next level and into your next goal. Man, I'm so glad that you all joined me on this evening. I've missed chatting with you, but I wanted to come on when things were a little had died down some. um, and remember, always be mindful about stressors. It always comes from the top: anxiety and whatnot. And so be mindful about taking time to do your own self-care, mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. So I'm glad you all joined me, and I will I will be back at the same time next Wednesday for our parking lot chat. So you all go and tell folk if they missed the parking lot chat tonight, they missed it because it was really good. And I'm glad because that you all tuned in, because you all make the conversation every time that we come on. All right. You all are dictate what direction we go and how we move forward. So thank you for staying out here on the parking lot with me and having a conversation. They could turn the lights off in the church and all that, but we still out here doing our thing. And so, the group that I used to be able to go with, we would go and get something to eat after we finished. So that being said, I have not had an opportunity to have dinner, but I want to do it before it gets too late. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, if nobody else has told you on today, I love you. But beyond that, God loves you. And as always, chaps out. Be blessed, you all. Hey, Tamika, I didn't know you were on, but I'm glad to see you tonight. Love you, love you, love you. Tell your mama I want some of that seafood dressing, Connie. All right, you all. Good night, good night, good night.